that the British government said, oh, this was a hack so that they could try to cloud the providence of these internal documents and emails and block it from being admissible in court. But now it's coming out that the scientists admit it is their emails, it is their documents, and that in the emails, there are other scientists, junior scientists in these universities saying, this is illegal, we shouldn't be doing this, and that it's those scientists that leaked this because there was just the FOIA request a few months ago that was criminally blocked with the British government and the University of East Anglia. And so people said, I'm not going to engage in fraud for you, and that this was given to the police, this was given to the BBC 6 weeks ago, 7 weeks ago now, and they criminally blocked it. So now the conspiracy of fraud is getting bigger, and as the criminals try to cover it up, the charges are racking up.
And it's becoming very obvious. I mean, we used to say the fastest way to expose a dictator, make him act like one in public. They're doing it right now.
Yeah, what about the UN saying if you criticize man-made global warming as media, you can't come to the Copenhagen event. Only if you agree can you come. Huh, we'll be right back. All right, Mike Rivero is our guest for the rest of the hour. I want to open the phones up in the next segment, but only on ClimateGate. I want that to be the main focus in this hour. Only on this situation with the new United Nations documents where they're organizing a global government corporate takeover from state government, federal government, local government, right down to your children, how to turn your children against you. Now, if this doesn't make you angry, folks, I don't know what does, creating a false consensus. Mike Rivero, where do you see this going? As their banking takeover blows up in their face, as their global warming tax blows up in their face, but Obama doesn't care. 34,000 more troops to Afghanistan.
Yeah, Obama has already indicated he is just fully in accord with this agenda. Remember when he was campaigning for president, he said, I'm going to end the war and you can take that to the bank. Now he's sending another 30,000 troops into Afghanistan. He's going to Copenhagen. His White House spokespeople are standing there with their hair on fire regarding ClimateGate and insisting they can't smell any smoke. They're saying, oh, well, the science is settled. We're going to go in and we're going to sign away your sovereignty. Now, the important thing for people to understand, and again, getting angry right now is appropriate because it's obvious they're going to steamroller this plan through, regardless of the fact that everybody knows it's a fake and a hoax. Their attitude is, well, as long as they're...
Well, we just lost Mike Rivero from Hawaii. Just a few years ago, video Skype cut out every 30 seconds. Now it cuts off every 20, 30 minutes. But hey, that is the magic of technology, that I can be sitting here in Austin, Texas, going out on satellites to AM and FM stations, global shortwave, satellite, internet, at Infowars.com, at PrisonPlanet.com. We can connect to Mike in Hawaii on an island 4,000 miles out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, that can be beamed to satellites or through undersea cables into our studio and out to you instantaneously. That is certainly something very, very exciting. So that happens occasionally. We just did it over a phone line. It wouldn't be cutting out, but I know the PrisonPlanet.tv viewers like to be able to see Mike Rivero, complete with his hula shirt. I tell you, I got to envy him living out in Hawaii. But we couldn't live in Hawaii because the cost of living is too high. I wouldn't be able to run this office the way we do. Texas is pretty cheap, folks. Very, very low cost of living comparatively. Austin, great place to have our operation. If we lived in New York or City or Los Angeles and ran this operation out of Hawaii, somewhere like that. Plus, I'm a Texan. I love Texas, but I do envy Mike Rivero and living out in Hawaii. The problem is, if I lived in Hawaii, I'd be swimming every day. Probably even try to take up surfing. I know I'd be scuba diving every week. So maybe it's a good thing I'm here in the Texas hill country. But we are getting Mike Rivero line back up. And if there's any problems, we'll just go ahead and go to regular phone line with him. You know, we can always do that. We can. Okay, great. We got Mike via the phone. Okay, Mike, you got cut off Mike Rivero joining us by telephone from Hawaii. Finish up your point.
Okay, well, my point is very simple. It is a founding principle of the United States of America that we were all raised to cherish, that governments rule with the consent of the governed. And you need to look at everything the United Nations is doing regarding the imposition of a global government. None of it is being done with the consent of the people. They're trying to trick us into going along by creating these false monsters of human-caused global warming so that we'll feel guilty and say, yeah, I guess we got to do it. Or they're going to try and scare us with the global pandemic so that we'll run to them and say, please, please save us from the nasty virus. Or they'll crash the economy and say, so that we'll run to them and say, please give us some bread, give us some water so that we can survive another day. And it's not being done with our consent. It's being done with trickery and deception and the manufacturing of a false consent out of fear. This is not democracy. It is not even a republic. It is the imposition of a global oligarchy. And it is being done through fraud. Everybody listening to this show should be furious right now. You should be angry. I mean, screw anger management. I am seriously ticked off here, and so should you be. And if you're not angry about this, what's wrong with you?
You know, I was just about to make that point when you made that point, Mike. We're on the same page. I yell and scream, I get angry because we're meant to get angry over being usurped, being enslaved by a bunch of swindling, degenerate parasites, caught red-handed, and they're just continuing on with their fraud. Everybody needs to stop just accepting this tyranny.
We're